Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Silent Chrysalis. We're in episode 3 today. It's exciting to get going. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we go through every month and how that cycle changes for us and what it means. And for me, for the longest time, it's always like been this negative connotation to me. I don't know. But again, we always have Lucy with me to my I can't ever tell my directions. But today I'm so excited to also bring on Liz, who just loves to help moms explain all of this to their daughters. And so I thought she was a perfect person to bring on today to help us talk about this and the joys of it and how we can also bring that conversation to our daughters. And then Lucy, we have on the other end, who's always going through the menopause. And so we can talk about that whole cycle of what that means for us to be as women and what we can do to really embrace it rather than have that negative aspect to it. So, Lucy, why don't you take it away and tell us a little bit?
I was gonna say, are you really wanting me to talk about what's not the negative aspect of this?
Yes,
Because
I
I've had
do.
an absolute shit time.
That's okay.
Like honestly, and when I look back, going back to my 30s, after my second, that's when I noticed my hormones first started to change. Now that I can look back, and
Mhm.
I started having horrendously heavy flows every month to the point where for at least a couple of days I was nervous about leaving the house. Some days I bring an extra change of clothes to work because I was that concerned about, you know, those mishaps that happen. So the prospect of menopause was exciting to me because what we're basically told is, yeah, you might get some hot flashes and your period stops. Like, yay, I don't have to deal with this anymore. They leave out all of the other shit that can happen when what actually happens when your hormones are changing and what that does to your body. Everything from how you digest your food, your eyesight, your hair, your skin. Our hormones affect so many different parts of our body. Now, some women have a really easy time with menopause, just like some women, they breeze through their periods every month. And then there's some of us that it's just this whole gory nightmare of an effect going on. And you really have to become, you know, your own self advocate. You have to become your own detective because there is so little information out there for women when it comes to what happens to their hormones at this stage of life. And ultimately, you are the best person to know your body. It comes down to you got to figure out shit for yourself. That's my experience.
Well, on that note, welcome, Liz. And let's hear your take. And what brought you into wanting to help moms explain this to their little girls?
Wow. Well, I will say today is my cycle day 247. So it's been 247 days since I had my last period, and I'm still counting because I'm well into my menopause journey. And I am having my own experiences, Lucy, which definitely it has made me shift the way I think about self-care, and it's made me shift in terms of how I think about my body and what I need as a human being right now, for sure. And it's such an interesting part of this process to be like where my hormones are winding down just as my 12-year-olds are ramping up as she goes through puberty and, you know, has her own experience with her cycles. So in some ways, I think there's beautiful camaraderie in that, in just the way that our ages happen to line up for this process together. And other times it makes those moments a little bit challenging because we can both feel raw at the same time. And I have to really think about being the parent in those situations and sometimes putting my own emotions to the side so that I can help her, you know, just feel her feelings and reflect and move through that back to a more even keel. I am on a mission to give our tweens and teens a healthy start to their cycle. And I do that by helping moms feel prepared, feel confident, be ready, and be ready to be our tweens and teens teacher, because so much of this we are not taught. And Lucy, to your point, we start figuring things out when we need it. And I want to make sure that our tweens and teens are equipped from the beginning with understanding their whole cycle, not just how do we manage the days that we bleed, but what is happening in their body with their hormones, what is happening with their energy, what is happening as they move through life, so that they're prepared for some of the other, big transitions that come. So that's what inspires me to do the work that I do. And I think moms are just in the most powerful position to be bringing our tweens and teens along into living with their cycle.
I love your mission as I have a 10-year-old now and a 7-year-old too, and going straight into that. So I can feel the other moms probably going, because I still feel that anxiety of like, how do I explain all this to her? So what are those first steps to explaining? So I want to kind of just guide you guys to where we're going to go with it. We're going to talk about the first steps, but then we want to go through all of our journeys of what that means and some of the ways that we've gone up and down throughout this. And so why don't you start off, Liz? Where should we start?
Well, I would say two things are where we should start. Number one, starting with a family culture around period positivity and openness. Maybe positivity is too far of a stretch to start as we begin this journey, but I would say starting with openness. Number one, let's not hide our period products. Let's have conversations with our partners and our kids that's like, oh, I'm on cycle day 10. This is what it feels like. Or Mama's on day 1, just at the beginning of my period. And that means I'm really tired. And so we're going to do low key play today. Or I'm feeling really adventurous. I'm on day 16. Again, Lucy, to your point, we all know our bodies and our cycles the best. So whatever that is for you. But first of all, just being open, creating a culture of openness that doesn't teach our kids that we hide our periods and we hide our cycle and we hide our experience with how our energy changes throughout our cycle. So being open about that. And then number two is connecting with our own mindset, because just as a reminder for all of us, our thoughts lead to our feelings, which leads to our actions. So when we can have thoughts that are like, this is really hard for me right now. Lucy, to your point, like it looks like, there's just blood everywhere. This is a hard moment versus like, I hate my period. I hate myself. When it starts to turn inward of the like, this is awful. And we sort of get caught up in that story that our culture tells us about why our bodies are so gross and why periods are so horrible. So if we can do our best to have a mindset that is like, sometimes this is hard, and here's what I do about it. I take care of myself through my hard moments. Then we can have a feeling of empowerment. We can have a feeling of confidence, and then we can take action to support that. When we kind of approach our tweens and teens, our daughters' first periods, and we're like, oh my God, I'm just dreading this, which is something I hear a lot from parents. I'm really dreading this. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how this is going to go. And when we can shift it to like, I'm prepared to welcome her into her cycle. I'm prepared to help lead her in this experience. Then we can start to have feelings of confidence, and we can approach conversations with our daughter in a way that's like, I've never done this before. You've never done this before. We're going to figure it out. I'm up for learning. And I want to help you have your best experience so that you have a healthy, positive experience. And then maybe that leads people to taking a moment to just reflect on your own experience of your first period or your early periods. Is there anything about that experience that you want to pass on or affirm for your daughter? And are there things that you're like, I did not like how that went for me, so I'm going to do it better? Well, then you've got time to understand what your daughter needs and wants and how you might do that.
Now you say that, like looking back, I'm not even sure, like I really remember like I can't even remember what grade I was in. I think it was 4th grade, but I'm not even positive. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it was just like always a thing. And I can remember in high school, like just always having bad cramps and stuff. But I didn't generally like focus on it as much. I don't know. How about you, Lucy?
I'm gonna say I think I was like grade 7. And all of the girls, we were having it, and we had our thing where we used to call it, "Oh, I need my purse this week,"
I
because
like that.
you had to make sure, like, we had lockers. You had to make sure you had somewhere to keep your stash. So, it was like you always knew your friend was having her period because she had her purse with her all the time. It's not like the guys would have clued in. It was just, I mean, for me, it was just like, okay, it happened. This is what it means. No big deal. Nothing, a lot of the things that you were talking about, Liz, none of that really sort of fit into where I was, or sort of maybe what I was needing. I mean, yeah, it would have been nice to have had a bit more of that information when it comes to those different, each week is different and how you're going to be feeling.
Mhm.
That could definitely help a lot of girls, because I can remember growing up, you're sort of made to feel like there was something, there was something wrong with you because you were being bitchy that week. And it's like, well,
Lucy, you broke up when you were saying
and
something.
having that, I certainly, it would have been a different experience if my mother was sort of more on getting it. But things change.
Yeah.
I like that we're even having this conversation, because honestly, when I first started talking to Liz, I was almost kind of hesitant, because but I know I need to start having these conversations, especially having Bella. I mean, my daughter is coming to that age where it's like, if I don't start to feel comfortable having these conversations, I mean, yeah, I've talked with women all along about it, but it's just being more open about it. And I love how you say, like, just being open in the household about it, because like that wasn't a thought. I know, Lucy, you had all boys in your household, right? Were you
Yeah, that
guys
was,
open?
it's just not, I'm not going to have that conversation with my sons. I'm just not. It's my personal business. And you don't need to, of course, my husband knows, but it's like, I'm not going to have those discussions with my sons. I'm just not.
And so, yeah, I think it's up to how you're feeling or what your household consists of. And so I think my son, just because he's the oldest of two, like having 2 girls underneath him, kind of just overhears a lot of it and just is kind of intrigued, like, what's going on? Why are they talking about this? Why do they have to do this? And the whole training bra situation's coming up, where she has no desire whatsoever. And she's like such a tomboy that she hates like the thought of it. And I've got her to wear it for like all of like an hour each day during like for 2 days during the summer so far. But like by school next year, it's really time to start doing those things, and to really, any tips on that?
I mean, it takes us a while to feel our way through puberty and how our bodies are changing. And some of that is so uncomfortable. And it, our kids have a lot of feelings about that whole experience. So having compassion, having understanding, and letting her manage her way through that experience is going to be really helpful, I think, because she will figure out what is comfortable for her. So maybe there's like a variety of offerings, and it's sort of like when you have a 3-year-old, you're like, it's just not a yes or no question. I'm going to give you this choice and this choice, and you get to pick. And so she has some power in that. And, she's making the decision about it, because maybe there really are comfort things that she needs to, figure out what's best for her choices.
I was going to say, if she's a tomboy, I mean, there's so many different sort of sports halter top types of things.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been trying. I've got just kind of a
Yeah.
variety to let her try different ones, and just the thought of anything, it could just, I don't know, but yeah, it's something we'll keep working on. But I like how you said that, the offering. And so maybe it's giving her all the choices all at once, and letting her choose one of those, or even taking her to the store again and seeing if there's something better out there for her. But, and I think you're right. Like it's such a, both of you are kind of giving that same point, that it's so personal to how we do these things. And so honestly, like, as you were saying, Liz, like with that openness in the house, it's feeling what you're comfortable with. But the more that you're having those conversations with whoever you feel comfortable with, to have those conversations and getting them out more. Because I think as we feel more comfortable about, then we're able to share it with our daughters, but then also to share with our friends is, I mean, I believe it was you, Lucy, who said that we had like the third generation to actually go through menopause,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
back in the day they passed away before
Life
menopause.
expectancy. Yeah.
Right.
And plus women were having babies so much longer, so much later in life, that the whole menopause thing it happened, but just not in the same way. And there are so many different environmental factors now that are playing into sort of the different, call it the severity that some women experience when it comes to menopause. So you can't really compare the two. You really can't.
Yeah. And I think the more we show up having these kinds of conversations where we're like, this is part of a normal experience of being a woman, the more we just make it normal. Like it doesn't have to be, so hush hush and so like, oh, it's a topic we can't talk about, because those messages are affirmed for us all over the place. And I think right now we are seeing more bubbling around our menstrual cycles, menopause, first periods. We're starting to see, a little bit of that change where we can talk about it, but I'm ready to push that a little bit further in our normalizing of this experience, because we're all having
it's all going to happen.
Journey. So the more we do it, the more it becomes okay for other people to do
it. So how do you suggest, either one of you, approaching, like, for women I mean, we've been told for so long to hide it, to like keep that information to yourself. And so it's kind of like this almost like energy in us that we're like, okay, this like secret that I can't share with anyone. Any suggestions on how to start coming out to like share that with other people, or who we should start that with?
I'm going to say that no matter where we are, no matter what phase of life we're in, I think the most important thing to remember is my body, my choice. And that comes to, it's like we were just talking about your daughter and her preference for bras. It also comes down to whether you prefer to use a pad, a tampon, or a cup. It's your choice, what you're comfortable with. And then the same translates into midlife, because some women choose to go on hormone replacement and some women don't. It's all about, as I said earlier, knowing your body and what works for you. So however you have the conversation, however you want to approach this, it comes down to what you want first and your comfort level.
Yeah, I agree. And I think wherever we can, just share our own experience, I think is a good starting point. Sometimes we want to jump right into like, oh, this is what you should do, or this is what you should think about. And as we're, just starting to talk more about things, maybe it's more just like, this is my experience. This is who I am today. This is how I feel today. This is what's going on for me. Lucy, you were really open at the beginning of this. Like, here's my experience, right? And I'm really open. Here's where I am in my cycle. And so just starting there to be able to say, we're both normal. These are our experiences, versus the like, this is what you have to do, or here's my advice. That can come later as you build relationships and like have other kinds of conversations about things. But the more we just show up authentically who we are today and are like, this is me, and I'm happy to share about it. And then if people want to talk more, that's great too. But there can be that signaling of openness.
I love that so much, because I think a lot of times that we struggle when we talk to other women is we're afraid of that judgment. We're afraid of that advice, or they cut you off because they're like, well, I know what you should do. And then you don't even get to express yourself. And so I think that that's just great advice in general for us when we're speaking with other women, as we start to realize that we don't need to fix everything. That a lot of times, especially as we know that we're like, our husbands are sitting there trying to tell us exactly what we need to do. And we're like, just listen to me. And so I think we need to do that same thing as we think about other women as well. Like, they might be complaining or saying what's going on with their kids. It doesn't mean you need to tell them what their kid needs to do. or as you were saying, like just giving suggestions to what Bella might do and thinking about her comfort level and give such ideas of how to be more open about listening to each other. And we don't need to always have that fix it, which I think always comes in. And then that's where the judgment, I think, where we feel that. And then we are all of a sudden like, oh, I can't be vulnerable. I can't show who I am because they're just going to judge me for it or tell me how to do things and I'm doing them wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we start to be more vulnerable and open with each other, just to have that in your mind as you have those kind of conversations, or any kind of conversation, really. And so I was going to ask you, Liz, and now I forgot. My brain's going a little bit today as I was you get distracted, right? Because I do have 3 kids off in there, and they actually made it all the way up screaming to the room. No one's screaming now. They're already back downstairs happy in the midst of us having this conversation. It's kind of funny listening to the background noise in the house as the kids are learning how to interact. But I'm actually glad I didn't jump in because they're getting to the point where they need to solve their own conflicts. And so I think that's as we start to, one of the things that was coming to me as we were talking about this also is just letting them, as we're telling our girls about this, is to give them the suggestions and let them come to you and just to have that openness in that conversation. And I think as we get to menopause and having those, it's been such all along I've just felt like it's always anything to do with the period was just hush, hush, hush. And so it is that feeling of like, for me, like I can feel in my stomach right now, this conversation is still quite a bit uncomfortable for me, even though I'm open about a lot of different things. But like, for instance, one of the things I'm going through is because I have an IUD is trying to figure out how that hormone balance even works with me. And do I want to keep it or what, or all those things that go with it. And then almost like it. So it's always just having those kind of conversations in your head. Like, should I share this? Should I not? And I think just the more that we kind of like get out there and just in it, when you feel like it is a safe space, because I felt like you two are so comfortable right now. Like I have no problem expressing that right now. And so I think, as I love how Lucy said, just at your comfort level, look for the people you feel comfortable talking with and expressing some of these things with, because the more we see the beauty in who we are as women, the more that we let that identity come forth and we can be that vulnerable selves and share this experience together rather than tell each other how to be in this experience. I think that's what it really comes down to.
Mm-hmm. And goodness knows, as mamas, like we need support. We need help. We need each other to make our way through parenting and midlife and, all of our changes. We need each other. And one of the ways that we overcome those internal shames is by having empathy for each other. So when we're in that conversation and we can just say, thank you for sharing, like I hear you, versus coming in with our own experience right away, we can just like take a little moment to have empathy in a conversation and then also share your own experience. But sometimes we ping pong really quickly from like, oh, this is me. Oh, this is me. And the conversation like doesn't always get deeper because everybody is just trying to say their thing. So that kind of empathy really helps us go, oh, Michelle, you're normal. I have a copper IUD and I'm having those same feelings about it. Like, how much longer do I have this in my body? Why did I make this choice? Like, why was this the right choice, for us at the point that I got my IUD? So yeah, it's hard to be the first person. And then you have to respond to when somebody's open with you. How do you want to be in a relationship with somebody? And how do we as moms give each other some space and grace to make our own choices? And it's just, our culture can be so full of judgment and choosing sides and choosing ways. And it just, as humans, we can find another way, I feel like.
I love that so much, Liz, and I see what you're saying, and even like when you just mentioned that right now, all of a sudden it's like in me, I felt like this like it's okay, like that I shared that, you know what I mean, and I think the more that we do that, the more open we are, and even like the thing that I want to add to that was even just in my choosing, part of it was just because of the struggle I was having with my husband and him not wanting to go to the vasectomy route, and then it was that choice of what can I do that I feel comfortable with as a woman to further this on. And so that's where I came to my decision. And that still, I can still feel a resentment in me at times and trying to let that go. But I think having these conversations saying, you're not alone. You're not the only one in this situation. Like we're in this together. And you're like, okay, I can start letting some of that resentment go and just move on. And this is where we're at because we can do this together.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I feel that. I get it.
On that note, I think we're getting close to running out of time. So Lucy, why don't you remind everyone how to get a hold of you?
Okay, you can find my podcast, The Roller Coaster of Midlife, on all of the major platforms, including Apple. And you can also watch the video content versions on YouTube.
Any final words about our topic today, Lucy?
Ultimately, I think you always have to be you. You be you. However you design that, whatever you feel works for you. I think that's the most important thing, is to stay true to who you are and stand in your own authenticity.
Thank you so much. Liz, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell everyone how they can get a hold of you and those struggling moms out there who want to talk to their tweens. How can you help them?
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. Well, you can find all of my information at raisingflora.com. I offer classes. I offer cohort experiences for parents, really mostly moms. And I offer one-on-one consultations. I just did one yesterday, and it's a really helpful experience to just come and ask me all of your questions, not in front of a whole bunch of people, and sort of puzzle through what's important to you. What are your next steps? How do you want to have these conversations with your tween? So I do classes, cohorts, and consultations, and you can find me at raisingflora.com. Thank you so much, Lucy and Michelle. Like, it's been delightful to talk to you, and thank you. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks for being on here. And also for those of you that are watching today and want to experience what it's like to have a chance to have that comfort and a space to have those conversations, I will be hosting with Workshop for Moms tomorrow a virtual women's circle, which is just a spot for you guys to come in. It is in Zoom, but you will never believe how much connection you can have in 1 hour in Zoom till you give it a try. So it's an experience that I highly recommend you coming. I'll have the link to Eventbrite in the description. But again, you always notify me on connectingmamas.com. And if you want some one-on-one time or working towards getting that group class, and really just about connecting moms together so we can have more of these conversations and figure out what are our dreams together and how do we get there and how can we actually support each other in it? Because that's what it comes down to, is when we have that support in that group and we have, just like today, we have the people where we feel comfortable having these types of conversations with. So come back. Also come back next week and join us again. Thanks, everyone. Bye.